Good morning. This is Sunday morning, and I'm going to give you a little follow along on first on the Q-Anon of this last week or so, and then I'm also going to give you a preview of coming attractions and tell you why I'm wearing this goofy outfit or formal attire as you might see it, and why we have a new backdrop. So first, as to the Q-Anon business, there were a number of drops, and I will include an attachment of the drops so that you can find it, a link to it. There is quite a bit of discussion about things that are going to be coming. Nothing any different, I don't think, than what we've seen. There's a list of names of people about whom Q and whatever it is, whoever it is Q represents, are looking at, including Loretta Lynch, of course, Hillary, Comey, Clapper, Chuck Schumer, McCabe, John McCain, of course, Rod Rosenstein, Susan Rice, I think, John Brennan, Huma Abedin, and Valerie Jarrett. There was a question about who was in North Korea, and apparently Eric Schmidt was in North Korea, along with Governor Bill Richardson. What were they doing there? Are they a CIA proxy? Why is Google trying to set up a spy network, or why might they be trying to set up a spy network for North Korea, etc.? So there is that. There was also a series of photographs, and a bunch of people have looked at who might have been in there. I spent a little time on it. I should have gotten this to you a couple of days ago. There, I think, are 6 or 7 photographs. The first one is a photograph taken of a awards ceremony, I think in 2001. Most of the people there are billionaires. The back row is Ted Turner, Bill Gates Sr., that is the father of Bill Gates Jr., the Microsoft guy, George Soros, and David Rockefeller. The front row is Irene Diamond, Brooke Astor, and Lenore Annenberg. And of course, they're all going to their gala event. The second photograph is a photograph of 6 people with Pope Francis. It is a group of Jewish council folks. The third photograph is, let's see, I may have gotten these out of order. I think the next photograph is of Pope Francis kissing the hand of a person with a Jewish hat on, and there are 6 Holocaust survivors with whom he met, and he kissed the hands of each of them in Jerusalem. The next photograph is, I believe, of Barack Obama at a fundraiser at the home of Stephen and Judy Gluckstern. And that was in April of '07. It is obvious there that he is quite self-enchanted and perhaps enchanted others, and the person most obviously and prominently present is a person seated by the side of the staircase named George Soros. The next photograph is a photo taken in 1959 in China. It is a photograph of Mao Zedong. Some of you, all of you may know, the premier of and dictator, brutal dictator of China from 1948 or 9, when the communists pushed out Chiang Kai-shek, until well into the 70s. There were purges of whole classes of people, and with him are 3 Chinese People's Association members and 2 Americans. One is W.E.B. Du Bois, an NAACP founder, I believe, who was a socialist by most estimations, sometimes a communist sympathizer, believed that socialism would be beneficial to minorities and that kind of thing. Traveled extensively and was, in fact, I think, denied his passport on a couple occasions and died in Africa. The other American that's in the photograph is a woman named Anna Louise Strong, an American writer and journalist who lived in the Soviet Union for a number of years, was a pro-Stalinist, wrote very sympathetically of Stalin, and also was pro-Chinese, lived in China for many years. I believe she died in China in the early 70s. Both of our Americans, not really responsive to the process of how brutal and how death-defying both of those leaders were. Stalin, who had gulags, which I will talk about in the next day or so, throughout the Soviet Union, and rounded people up for exile, basically, to remote locations where they were engaged in slave labor as prisoners for 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, and then exiled, never to be allowed to return. There were probably at least 20 million that were killed by Stalin, and there were perhaps 50 million killed by Mao Zedong. Chairman Mao was a brutal and awful person. So those are some of the contact information. Exactly what it means in the deeper perspective is yet to be seen. Obviously, we're made to look to see both that we have globalists here, but also that those globalists are linked to everything that went on in the communist countries, and which is totally ignored in history, but which is very apparent. The Bolsheviks into Russia were supported by the globalists, by the Western, by the gold handlers, by the bankers, as were Chairman Mao, and there was active work during World War II to half-sheet or to give inadequate help to Chiang Kai-shek while Chairman Mao, or Mao Zedong at the time, with his terrorist group, was expanding control and also responding to the Japanese that had taken over much of pre-war and pre-communist China. All right, so why am I wearing a top hat and a tuxedo? As most of you remember, I'm sure, there was a game called Monopoly. And I believe it was copyrighted in 1934. It was originally by a private party, taken over by Parker Brothers. Probably all of us have played it. It was a game of real estate monopolization. We had little board players and dice, and the object was to take over the entire board and take everybody else out. Innocent little game based upon, I believe, some notion at the time of the monopolies that were present in the United States and throughout the world in a whole variety of places. Steel, transportation, banking, and oil are obvious ones. And the players that are part of what came to be the monopolists of the 1890s through the 1920s are very much in play now. And they are, in fact, at the core of what is our problem as I see it even now. So instead of having a Monopoly game, I have a game called Pandemopoly. And instead of going around the board innocently and having chance or community chest or utilities or costs or taxes, my board includes the kind of things that the globalists are using to manipulate us with problem, reaction, solution, and have been doing so for nearly 300 years. So here are the things, some of the things that are routinely being done and is at the core of the Q-Anon message, which has to do with these same parties and the same players and the same modus operandi, the same design that they have been using for hundreds of years and that the Romans used thousands of years ago. Nothing has changed. It's just that none of us keep track of history to understand what is really going on. And a few of us are starting to wake up. So the problem is still here. The problem comes oftentimes with false flags, oftentimes with media, with the mainstream media giving false reports. But there are other things that go on that are seemingly independent events that are all linked to the same source, all linked to the same problem, all trying to get the same reaction, which is for us to retreat and for them to advance. And most of us could not imagine other humans treating people the way that this board game, it's not a game, this board process, the game that they play with us to make the outcomes for themselves, benefit themselves throughout history. So the preview to coming attractions is, as Hollywood does, showing you new things that are going to happen. I'm going to disclose what goes on in all of these pieces: voter fraud, taxes and fees, the arms race, bank crashes, wars, plagues and disease, the media, terrorism, big oil, pharma, drugs, GMO, false flags, and mega corporations throughout the world, and how those things are impacting our lives on a daily basis, and why what Q-Anon claims to be doing, God help us, and what Trump is supposedly working on, God help him, to change or right this situation. And for those of us that are here, it is to be part of the core, to be part of the proactive avant-garde group that I call the 10 million. And the 10 million are people who are the 3%ers in the United States, and we invite people from all over the world to come participate with us to make people aware of all of this and to begin to do something about it, to stand up, to respond, to speak out, and to not allow our public officials to ignore and deny these things any longer, to be captured by all of what's going on here. So I will be doing my tux and top hat routine a little later today, I hope, and I will be describing some of the things that I see going on throughout the world and how they fit into the historical perspective of our recent international affairs. And I invite you to come along. So please give a thumbs up to this. There's more to come. Please subscribe, because I have things to say, and I hope that you enjoy and appreciate and respond to and agree with much of what I have to say. Please hit the little blue bell or gray bell or whatever it is so that you can keep track, because as time goes on, I'm going to be doing more of this and more announcing of other things that are going on, more response to what's going on in the world. And what I ask you to do is not simply be a YouTuber, which I am and we all have been, but for us to start changing the process to become much more than that. So thank you for watching. I appreciate all of your impetus, all of your input. Please feel free to leave messages. If you think I'm being goofy, let me know. But I take this very seriously, and the costume is just for fun. So thank you.